up guys, Arolf here, back again with another video, and today we'll be taking a look at the Hot Toys quarter scale collectible series Iron Man Mark III. This is the deluxe version, so let's get into it. Now taking a look around the packaging, you get a nice look at Iron Man's helmet right there, which is kind of raised from the box. On the side here you get QS012 at the bottom with Iron Man Mark III deluxe version right there on the side. Now at the back here you get the warning labels, UPCs at the bottom, and the cast and crew responsible for making this figure on the top, so pause if you want to look and read at those. And on the other side you get the same thing, Iron Man Mark III deluxe version, same thing on the top and same thing on the bottom. And without further ado, let's get into it. Doing some size comparisons, here's Iron Man next to the 12-inch repulsor power Iron Man on the left, the 6-inch on the right, and the superposable Spider-Man by Toy-Biz, which I think is 1/4 scale. Next up, we get a couple of Hot Toys figures like the 1/6 scale Thanos and the 1/6 scale Iron Man Mark 50. And just for fun, this is the Ironmonger arm, supposedly the 1/4 Ironmonger arm. You can see how huge it is. And lastly, a couple of Hasbro figures, so Iron Man party right there. Now for Iron Man's accessories here, starting off with the Tony Stark head sculpt here, really has a great likeness to RDJ. It is slightly battle damaged, so this helmet has a little bit more scratches as opposed to the light up version. So taking a look at that, the chin part does not move as the 1/6 scale does, so I don't know why they didn't include that. It is quite a heavy head sculpt, so it's quite dense. And you can see the face mask here attached onto the helmet, and you can have the cleaner one that is on the LED light up version, so you can get options if you want. Now comparing this to the LED light up version, you can see the light up version does have a lot of scuffings, but this one has a little bit more around the helmet. As we get a closer look at this head sculpt here, I like to say that the 1/4 scale details are amazing as opposed to the 1/6 scales. Don't get me wrong, I really love those 1/6 scale head sculpts, but with a 1/4 scale figure, it's a little bit bigger, so Hot Toys has a little larger canvas to work on and add those extra fine details as opposed to the 1/6 scale, which is slightly smaller, but really great likeness right here. Next up, Iron Man comes with one pair of repulsor blasting hands. Now these hands look really great on the figure. My one complaint is how the handguard itself is bent. Metal's not supposed to bend like that unless it's like the Mark 50 since it's nanotech. But for the Mark III, it does not make sense because in the promotional images for this figure, they showed the handguard kind of at an angle, which is kind of accurate to the movie, but I don't know why they changed it. It's probably because it's too brittle or something. And looking at the hand itself, you get some scuffing details, some light piping details. You don't get light piping in the fist, just to note, it's just painted on white, so yeah. Now for the articulation here, you got a ball joint so you can rotate it all the way around. You also got a hinge joint at the base of the wrist so you can get more range right there. And you also got some side to side movement like so. Next up, you get one pair of articulated hands. Now these hands are pretty much standard for every Hot Toys Iron Man figure. You get the usual nice paint job, some scuffing details. You also got light piping inside this one, so you can get some pretty nice, cool looking poses like this one. But just taking a look at the hand itself, these ones are a little bit different compared to the 1/6 scale versions, because these ones have ball joints at each finger. So usually for the 1/6 scale version, you would get a ball joint at the thumb right here. But with this one, you also get a ball joint at all the fingers. So ball joint at the thumb, single bend at the thumb right there, ball joint on the pointer finger, rotation all the way around, double joints right there. For the middle, you get the ring, and then you get the pinky finger, all ball joints, so you can get some range right there. But making a fist is kind of ugly, so that's why they give you the molded fist already. Just showing you the articulation. If you want to try to get this hand into a repulsor blasting pose, it is not possible, even with the ball joints. That's how far it can move up, so that's quite disappointing. But you get the usual bends and hinges right there. Next up, you get some battle damage parts like this chest piece right here, which is magnetized like so and easily pegged on like that. And taking a closer look at the chest, I really do like the chest plate itself. It has some nice battle damage details and some discoloration to the shiny armor with some matte tones right there, but I think the details are a little bit too soft. If they were a bit more defined, then I would have enjoyed it a little bit better. But next up, you get the shoulder pads here. Nothing really special going on. There are some scuffing and paint chipping details here and there, and you get some nice weathering effects, which look really cool. And the paint job is amazing. And lastly, for Iron Man's accessories here, you get the stand. Now, if you order the regular version, you would get this stand. You can see it says Iron Man Mark III engraved in metal, which is nice. Now, looking at the metal grade itself, it has some nice texturing details and paint details. It kind of has this reddish brown to it, which looks very nice. It does seem a little hollow and cheap, like a flimsy or a thin type of plastic, so be on the lookout for that, but the details nonetheless are amazing. Now, if you order the deluxe version, this is what you would be getting with light up features, which I'll get in depth later on. It does require 3 AAA batteries, which are not included. You can see the LED lights were down there. Now, doing a quick assembly montage. Enjoy. Now the LED lights illuminate most of the base here, but it doesn't look complete without Iron Man himself. This is the complete package right here. It looks very nice and very tall, so it stands about 25.5 inches or a little bit over, or 64 centimeters. But looking at the details itself, I'll get into that Ironmonger arm later. You get some nice dry brushing, silver dry brushing details in here. The arc reactor is painted nicely. Kind of looks like it has that weathered, aged look. The base itself, even though it's plastic, it looks like real metal. And looking at the inner details of the base here, like this part, there's pieces of the Iron Man or Ironmonger armor on the base. It's just in little pieces and segments, but the details nonetheless look amazing. And you can see the Ironmonger arm here kind of hugging that base, kind of overlapping. It looks really nice, but just make sure you have a lot of space for this guy because it's very huge. You can see some more details right there. You get the shoulder pad for Ironmonger, and you get this little piece that wraps around. I don't know what that is, but probably a clip magazine. I don't know. It just looks cool. Also, just a quick side note, when attaching the top base here, these little pieces seem to be like they're made out of a thinner plastic that Hot Toys uses all the time. It could snap on you if you're not careful, so just be on the lookout for that. If Hot Toys ever consider making a 1/4 Ironmonger, I'm considering buying it, because this piece right here, even though it looks like it's a huge piece, it's made out of plastic and it's very lightweight, and the details are amazing. The paint details are amazing. You get to see some nice reddish spots right there, kind of a discoloration in the metal, but it is a lightweight piece and it does seem hollow as well. But looking at it, it looks like real metal to me. So, taking a closer look at Iron Man here, starting off with that beautiful iconic Mark III helmet. What can I say? Hot Toys has improved upon this figure so many times, so many iterations of the Mark III. Comparing it to the first release, you can see the details on that one, or the proportions are kind of off a little bit. And by improving upon it and making different iterations, this is what they ended up with, and it looks like it's straight out of the movie, even though that is cheesy to say. But just looking at the head sculpt itself, you can see some nice sharp details here. There are a lot of nice sharp details, which I'll get into in a bit. But comparing this to the 1/6 scale Mark 50, just comparing the types of gold that they use a matter gold on this 1/4 scale figure, as opposed to the shinier gold, which is movie accurate for Infinity War. But I really do like this matte gold that they use. It looks visually appealing. Don't get me wrong, the shinier gold looks nice, but I do like the matte gold. And looking at the shoulders here, you get the shoulder pods that do pop out. They're not a separate piece. They actually built in the armor right here. You can see they're on a clear hinge right there, and you can see they move quite well. You got some nice detailing inside the armor as well, just all gunmetal gray, kind of a dark gunmetal gray. And they fold up and close up like so. And showing more details inside. This little area right here, which is a little dark, does light up, which I'll show in a bit, but it has some nice depth to it. It has some nice detailing to it as well. And there's also more details, so you can remove the chest plate right here, as we shown before, via magnets, and also the bicep armor pieces right there, the ones that are in gold, that nice matte gold that I like, revealing more detail. You got some nice gunmetal gray, painted nicely. You got some red and blue wires right there that are painted, which is a nice touch. But one purpose for this little detail is also a battery compartment. Take your little plastic pry tool that Hot Toys gives you, pry that open, and it reveals the battery compartment. So this little piece right here is just a battery cover, and they made it into an armored detail. They could have just skipped out on that part, but wow, Hot Toys went above and beyond with this one. And just showing you the light up features right there with everything turned on. It just looks amazing. There are also movable parts in the chest, which is pretty cool. Now, you would usually get your plastic pry tool and pry these out of the way since they're on double hinges. Be careful because these parts are fragile and sharp. But looking at it all exposed, you can see a lot of detailing, and with the lights turned on, they just illuminate. So in a dark room situation or a slightly dark room, you get to see some details that you didn't see before. And moving over to the shoulder here, just going over the armpit area, which is kind of weird, but I just like to show the inner mechanical details right there. Pretty basic sculpting and silver paint job, but it still looks nice nonetheless. And looking at the back here, he does come with his air brakes, which look nice, and they're painted silver on the inside. I just don't like the hinges because they are very loose and they loosen over time, but they still look nice nonetheless. And right here has the battery compartment with 2 ons, 2 offs. The one on turns on all the lights right here, and the other one just turns on the arc reactor, so you get some nice choices right there. And more movable armor pieces like this shoulder pad right there, which is accurate to the movie. Okay, looking at the arm here, bending the elbow reveals more details, like some panel lining details inside. And you can also move this elbow guard, which is pretty cool when articulating it. And looking at the arm here, you got some nice scuffing details and some nice details inside the wrist right there. And you could also transform it to reveal one of the iconic missile scenes that we see in the movie. And this is what it looks like. Looks pretty cool. And showing you one of the other sides has the shield. You can have shields on both of the arms and missiles on both of the arms, and you can see the light up feature here turned on. Looks really cool. Now moving down here to the abdomen or waist area or the hips, one of the armor pieces right here does move out. The gluteus maximus region right there, it's actually a spring loaded piece, so that's pretty nice. And looking at the little flares here, they do pop out. They're not spring loaded as we see before, so these are more secure. And got some nice detailing inside right there. And just to show you the movable flaps in the hip area, which allows you for more movement in the legs, they just fold out and fold in nicely like so. Moving right along to the thighs right there, you got that nice matte gold, which I've been gushing about. You got some nice weathering details. The matte gold and the battle damage effects look really real on this one, which is a nice touch. Got some scratching right there on the back of the thigh, very randomly placed, but still looks nice nonetheless. Very faint. And then there's another one which is heavily more defined right there. Really like the calves right there. The calves right here do deploy outward, as we see with the Mark II and the Mark III, which reveals a little more details on the inside. So right before we show that, just deploying all the flaps here. One thing to note, that these little calf pieces that are sticking out on the top are very loose, so when you're posing it or grabbing the leg, they do tend to pop off, so be on the lookout for that. You can see the nice detailing and paint job right there. Now, they do tend to pop off pretty easily because it is a battery cover for the battery compartment, which is another nice engineering thing that Hot Toys did. But you can see with the lights turned on, they are kind of faint, but looking at it with the bright lights, they're not that visible unless you get real close, but still looks cool nonetheless. And finally, looking down here at the feet, you get some nice scuffing details, some nice silver paint details. I wish there was a little bit more scuffing since this is the feet or the boots, but looking at it, you get some movable parts right there in the back of the heel. This part can move up for greater range in the feet. I'll show that later on in the articulation part of this video. And this little foot cover here shifts up and down and then slides up and down as well. And it's on a spring, so that's pretty cool. Also, one thing to note about the feet articulation, when rotating it side to side, these pieces tend to move out of the way right here. And they seem a little bit fragile, so be careful with that. But looking at the bottom of the feet here, you can see 2019 Hot Toys Limited. Got some silver painted rocket boosters right there and Marvel right there. For Iron Man's articulation, the head is on a ball hinge, so it hinges up like so. Down, not at all. You get some side-to-side movement from the ball joint, but if you want him to look down even further, you can shift that neck joint right here, going downward like so, so you can get a little more movement in the head. I tried moving the neck joint side to side, but it's just too stiff, so I don't know if you can move it side to side. The arms move out that far. They're on a ball hinge, but you can extend them and move them side to side like so. So you get that butterfly joint. They do bend out at 90 degrees, no further than that, as said in the instructions. They move down like so, and you can get them inward like that. Kind of a weird shifting motion right here. It's kind of stiff, but that is nice that it's stiff. So this will last for a little longer, and you get a ball joint at the arm right there, and you get this little spring joint at the shoulder pad. He also has a bicep swivel, which moves side to side. You also get a double jointed elbow right there, which bends a little over 90 degrees, which has some great range right there. And the fists here are on a ball hinge, so it rotates right there at the ball joint, and it has a hinge at the bottom of the wrist right there, as I showed before. Now the chest here pops up like so, which gives you a little bit more range when bending the abdomen or the chest area. It's on a ball joint like so, so you can rotate it side to side. These little pieces right here tend to pop out, so be careful with that because they are fragile. And they also bend inward like so. I was about to say outward, but my bad. And you can see that engineering right there from Hot Toys is amazing. It kind of stacks on top of each other, which is a nice touch. And it doesn't bend back whatsoever, which is a disappointment. You got some side-to-side movement right there. And popping it back down, there you go. Now moving down to the legs, they do ratchet down like so, which allows you to get more range from the leg. So it pops down like that. It's very stiff. And you can kick the leg forward about 90 degrees. You can get a little bit more range if you move like the armor pieces like near the hip area. So that's what that looks like. So that's pretty good range right there. And it also has the ball joint, so you can shift it back and forward and side to side and all over the place. And then shifting that back up, you could also pop this part of the thigh right here. If you hold down right there, you could pop that up. You can rotate it side to side so you can get a little bit more range or extend the leg if you so choose to. But looking at the knees here, you get double jointed knees right there, bending it all the way, which is very ratchety and clicky. The upper part of the knee joint seems a little bit stiffer compared to the lower part of the knee joint, so it's double jointed knees. But that's what that looks like. And you can see this little piece right here that's sticking out is not movable, but I wish it did, because when you're doing some poses, it could get scuffed up when you're trying to do a Iron Man landing pose. So yeah, that's what that looks like. Now moving down to the feet here, you get a double ball joint or a dumbbell joint right there. So you get some side to side movement right there. You can rotate that piece up as I showed before, and you can kick the foot up that far, which has some great range to it. And back, not that much, because of this little back piece right here, which does move up and down. So you can get some range to the feet, but you can see how the legs spread out that far. And doing the ankle pivot test, I almost forgot about it. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to move the legs inward, and hopefully he stands, and that's how far it goes, and he is good to go. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that is it guys. Hope you guys like it. If you did, drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and hit the bell to be notified when I upload a new video. Now, when choosing this deluxe version over the regular version, you can't go wrong with either one. I chose the deluxe version because having Ironmonger with Iron Man is so cool, and having this diorama piece with the Iron Man Mark III, it just makes it for a cool set piece. But if you can't afford the deluxe version, you can't go wrong with the regular version, because this Iron Man figure is probably one of the best representations of the Mark III that we've gotten in figure form in a long time. Now, the 1/6 scale diecast Mark III was great and all, and had those removable parts, but it kind of limited the articulation in the abdomen area. So having that limitation kind of gave it a point off for me from purchasing that specific figure. And having this 1/4 scale Iron Man, I really enjoyed the articulation. I think it's great. The light up features are amazing, and they went above and beyond by adding extra LED lights in the calf and the torso area, and also the arms where the shield pops out. So that's a nice addition to this figure. The accessories that you get are lackluster because the missiles are actually built into the suit, which is a plus. So you don't lose these little small pieces. So they're just all built into the suit in this 1/4 scale representation. Things that are disappointing, the battle damage pieces. You only get 3, 2 shoulder pieces and 1 chest piece. That really doesn't do much for me, because if you want to have battle damage pieces, I would recommend having more, like in the legs or in the arms or even in the shins itself. But other than that, he's a great figure, probably the best Mark III figure ever. So pick him up right now at Sideshow or your local comic book shop. So yeah, that is it guys. Hope you guys like it. Arolf Morris. This is the signing out. Peace.